Part 1 of 2, Classic Mercedes restoration versus Classic Porsche restorations. Here's an interesting topic. Today we're going to talk about comparing the work and parts availability and the process of restoring a classic Mercedes versus restoring a classic Porsche. And we're going to take a look at Porsches because there are some people that have a really, you could say it's a really enthusiastic love for Porsche or a really warped sort of obsession for Porsche. And I'm going to ask the question today why more people don't feel this way about Mercedes, why they're not willing to go as far with the Mercedes. Now, Porsche built sports cars. Sports car, by definition, is a totally useless car that's basically just there for people to gratify themselves on nice days when it's good to drive. Mercedes didn't really do a good job building sports cars because they were too busy building usable real cars. But unfortunately, a lot of classic Mercedes and a lot of classic Porsches have ended up in the same category as cars that people use infrequently. So this is both good and bad. It's good because it preserves the cars. It's bad because, I'm here sitting on my chair saying, oh, Mercedes is a great usable, drivable car. Try driving one every day. And yet, is that really going to happen? I don't know. You can ask somebody like John Woods. John Woods sells not daily drivers. He sells perfect Mercedes that you put a chair in front of and look at because they're perfect, which I guess is a good thing if there's a market for it, But at the same time, then I have problems trying to sell cars that are decent drivable cars, that actually maybe they have some rust or some dings that you can actually use it every day. The air's cold, the suspension's rebuilt, the brakes work. But with Porsches, people will go through some insane odds to restore them. If you take a 356 Pre-A, for example, which is not a great driving car, it's not, but some people think it's gorgeous. I think it's gorgeous, but they're actually kind of ugly if you ask a real car designer. And it's got a VIN plate left, but the rest of the car is ferrous oxide. They will build a car around it. And at the same time, with a Mercedes, if you were to take a Mercedes 190 Ponton sedan that needs, $30,000 worth of work to be a usable car your family could take out, it's like off the table. Like, no, we're not even going there. The funny thing is you will spend $400,000 restoring the Porsche and you will end up with a car that's worth about that much. And we're not even talking about the price of buying the car, insuring the car, housing the car, maintaining the car. So you'd lose less money with the Mercedes. At this point, it's like a game of mitigating loss. But I think the thing that pisses me off to no extent is that I'll go on Craigslist and I'll see like 3 Mercedes Pontons for sale, $5,000. Nobody's showing up to restore these cars, even though you could buy basically every part for them. Between Niemöller and Mercedes Classic, you can basically build one of these cars. And nobody's showing up to restore them. And yet you have like these goofy guys who have I don't even know if they can really afford it or not. I think they're taking out home equity loans to restore rusty 356s. I don't know if there's some speculation involved or like the Porsche Kool-Aid is that thick, or if it makes you all messed up like drinking lean does, but it's just not a normal sort of thing. And yet you have these amazing Mercedes from the 1950s and 60s, like the Finn cars that do everything pretty well. Nobody's going to drive down the interstate in their classic Porsche at 75 miles an hour. But I can see somebody driving a 220S at 75 miles an hour down the interstate. Or more, And you can play with the rear end gearing and you don't have an air-cooled engine that leaks oil constantly. That's a big plus too. So those things aside, one of the other nuances versus restoring classic Mercedes versus classic Porsches are the parts, but we're going to get into that in the next video. I'm just going to say that classic Porsche parts are really expensive and a lot of them are not, their quality's not that great. So when Porsche Classic goes around saying, oh, we have a classic program. Oh yes, check out our classic program. Guess what? It's not really a classic program because the factory's not making the parts. They're buying the parts from Chinese vendors, that just happen to make them or whatever, and putting a Porsche stamp on them without them going through the necessary quality control processes. Now we'll talk about how this happened in an upcoming video, but there was a company called Stoddard that was building a bunch of classic Porsche parts, and I personally think they were all low quality. I've looked at some of Stoddard's stuff. I'm like, man, this looks like something I'd buy at Advanced Auto Parts. And yet it fits a classic Porsche. Why? Because the car is basically a Volkswagen with some improvements. You know, that's where the idea started. So I guess you could get away with that. But with Mercedes, you know, when you build a relay in a Mercedes, that relay is supposed to work in rain, shine, salt, extreme cold, heat. Porsche, they're only driving the car in nice days. You're not going to go drive your 1960 356B T2 notchback when it's, you know, raining cats and dogs. I don't think so. Anyway, next video, we're going to talk about parts and quality control. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you own a classic Porsche and you have something mean to say, then say it. I don't care. You know, I just am telling you, like, you guys should be restoring some classic Mercedes too. All right, thanks. See you in the next video.